have literally just shown your ability to count backwards. Well done, Philster.
Greetings, Groovers. How are you doing? Welcome to Full Record Jacket with Phil and Ben. Me being Phil and he being Ben.
That's me.
That was pretty good because that almost looked as if my finger had intruded into the side of your screen.
Oh, did
then.
it?
Yeah, kind of. But it didn't, obviously.
Well, that's why the restraining order's in place, Phil, to stop that from happening
exactly.
again.
You don't want my finger intruding anywhere, do you? But,
no. Yeah, last time. Oh, it's just a prostate exam.
So it is 2 weeks.
Pretty sure you're not qualified in that.
It is 2 weeks since we did a show.
It is.
And
it is. Many things have happened in that 2 weeks. I've become older.
Yeah, I think I may have aged a couple of weeks as well.
Yeah. Well, it was my birthday, weren't it, Philster?
I've got a few things, Ben, that sort of music things and stuff in my head to talk about. And
cool.
So, we can just sort of randomly waffle about that as we do. But what's been your big music thing in the last 2 weeks, if you've had any time? I know you've been doing lots of other family stuff and things. But have you had time to play any songs?
I have had time to play any songs. As you can see behind me, it was my birthday, and one of the presents I got was Jamiroquai's Funk Odyssey album. So I've had that on. I forgot how quite bassy it is. Obviously I've got me Kef speakers and that here, but I've got an independent subwoofer. Holy moly! It almost opened me loft hatch.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to that. I've had that on yesterday. In fact, I've listened to quite a bit because I listened to. Because I got this as well. So I haven't listened to this one, but I got Moon Safari by Air.
Oh, yeah.
So I listened to it on the Spotify. And I was listening to Liam Gallagher's last album, Come On You Know, today. So I had that on. I've also had on a couple of times the Remy Zero album, which is one of my favourite albums of all time, from either 2001 or 2002, The Golden Hum, the one with the Smallville theme on it. Somebody save me.
Okay.
Do you remember that one? Do you remember that?
From that, I can't recall it, I must say.
Let your hands break right through, somebody save me. That one. So I've had the Golden Hum on. I love that album, and I really hope Elektra Records release it on vinyl at some point. I think it was 2001 it came out in. So yeah, I've had that album on, and I love that album. That is, if we did our favourite albums of the noughties, that would be up there. That would definitely be up there. And then I've had a couple of sort of interludes with Faithless, Insomnia, and then a song. Now, actually, I've listened to two things that got into the final of our one-hit wonders of the 90s. I have listened to Born Slippy a few times this week, because I've said it before, that opening, vroom, 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 just as soon as I hear that, it makes me realise I'm getting older.
Is that the one that goes on for... obviously I know Born Slippy under, but Lager, shout it, etc. But
yeah,
there's a version of that goes on for, is it 10 minutes long? Or
yeah, there is, yeah.
Now, when it was on the soundtrack to Trainspotting, on the CD that almost everybody seemed to own in the 90s, was that the full-length version on that album, the soundtrack album, or was it a shorter version?
I'm not too sure, because it was the Nooks, wasn't it? Was it Nooks Remix or something like that?
Is that
Nooks
right?
Remix?
Because
which is on for about 7.5 minutes or something like that.
Because I don't know which is regarded as a definitive version.
Is the
which is the proper version? What?
I'm not too sure, dude. I'm not too sure, but I do love it. It's just, there's something about that song, and I'll that just as soon as I hear it, I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach that just makes, because it's so seminally hooks me into the 90s period. That opening sort of sequence
takes you back to the 90s. It is like a time machine for the 90s, that piece, isn't it?
It is. It just pulls me back there. And I had it on. I was driving up the lane in my car and it came on, and all of a sudden I just had all these memories flooding back of, this time of year when you were like 18, 19 and you sort of got the freedom of driving and all that sort of stuff. You forget how exciting life was when you sort of, I don't think it is as exciting now, but back then there just seemed to be a sense of freedom, and that song does bring me back to that period, which is nice, because it's nice and it's also sad at the same time. The fact is, I'm never going to have that feeling again. You get what I mean? I'm never going to experience, and that's why they say youth is wasted on the young, because I didn't appreciate it at the time, and now all that time has passed. I can appreciate it now, but I can only appreciate it with foresight and not, in the moment.
So we got deep there for a minute, very deep with that, but I must admit, if I was going to listen to Born Slippy, I would like it to go on for 10 minutes. I would like that whole thing, that just sort of hypnotic.
Yeah. Just close your eyes and
is that on streaming? Can you stream the full length version of that?
I'm not sure. I think the Nux mix, which is 7.5 minutes, is definitely on there. I'm not sure if there is what else is on there. So then I harped on from that to the New Radicals, and today, while I was doing some garden work and that, I had Maybe You've Been Brainwashed too on.
Another of your favourite 90s albums, Although that did come out right at the very, very end of the 90s.
October 98.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay, yes, it was around in 99.
That's when the album came out. Yeah, the single got big in 99, but I didn't realise. So this just shows how disconnected I am as a super fan of the New Radicals. Is they didn't do them as physical releases, but they did release, because obviously Greg Alexander co-wrote and co-produced "Murder on the Dance Floor," which was the big hit for Sophie Ellis-Bextor. And there was a demo version of that song kicking around at the time, which Greg Alexander had sang. Oh, God, he's having a coughing fit. Should we just admire him as he's coughing, as he's dying? Are you back?
I'm back.
Are you back? And also there was a film released in 2014 with Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley called Begin Again. And the song from that, Lost Stars, got nominated for an Oscar. And Greg Alexander co-wrote and co-produced that as well. And so the New Radicals released their own versions of them October last year. And I did not know this until today. So I've been listening to a bit of that. And finally, Philster, you'll never guess. I'll give you 3 guesses of genre well, actually, no, I won't. I was listening yesterday for a good few hours to some northeastern Thai music, some traditional northeastern Thai music, and some Thai pop music. So that has been my listening for the last couple of weeks. But the New Radicals and Born Slippy, I love that. Love that. Oh, obviously, and the Lighthouse Family. I did listen to that as well. So, yeah. We've all got our cross to bear, Philster.
Must admit, I can't think of any Thai music that I actually know. Does it sound like you expect it to sound? Does it make you feel like you're in a restaurant?
The traditional Thai music does. The traditional Thai music does.
Have they got their own pop as well, like Korea has this Korean pop?
Yeah, and it's quite, you can tell it's, obviously, the language for a start. But I always find, so I don't know, because you hear some of these sort of, foreign language pop music and stuff. I don't know, it doesn't seem as polished as our mass-produced stuff, but there's something quite wholesome about it, if you know what I mean. I quite enjoyed having it on. It wasn't offensive to my ears. I didn't understand what was being said, but it wasn't offensive in any way. It's not going to upstage the Rolling Stones or anything like that, but it was a pleasant listen.
It didn't make you feel like ripping off the CD or whatever it was, or turning the speakers off. So
no.
Nice,
like I said, it was inoffensive.
Yeah.
It was inoffensive, but the traditional music, I quite like it because it's quite relaxing in a way, which is, and it's always good to let your ears, I keep saying, but it is nice to let your ears experience something you might not necessarily ever listen to. So,
yeah, I remember some years ago, Frank Skinner, the comedian. I don't know how he got onto the subject of it, but he got onto the subject of the band Steps, and he said he said he had a CD of Steps that someone had given him, and he said he found it was kind of like a CD player cleaner because after he played it, all of his other music sounded a lot better. So, I don't know why that came back into my head, but I just remembered that.
I might have to buy the Spice Girls album then.
Yeah,
I can understand that one, but like I said, it was inoffensive pop. So, like I said, didn't have a clue what they were singing about. But I think I got the gist because I think there was a bit of forlorn sorrow and stuff thrown in there. So
okay,
and a little bit of what I'd class as pop country, Thai pop country, if you can imagine such a thing.
Okay.
By a band called Loso, something like that.
Yeah. So. Nobody inserted the phrase "love you long time" into any of the songs.
No. Isn't that Vietnam?
Or maybe it
wasn't
is.
That
Yes, it probably is.
Wasn't that from the film that we borrowed the title for this here program that we are on today?
Oh yeah, of course.
Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I think it was Kubrick's film. Yeah. But I have actually seen, folks. Don't worry, I haven't culturally appropriated something that I haven't actually watched. But it's been many years since I've
it's a
seen
good film.
Yeah.
And I forgot it. It's Vincent D'Onofrio who plays. What's his name? Private Pile.
Yeah, kind of a film of two halves, really, isn't it? And the mad thing is that the Vietnam was actually staged in London Docklands. It was shot in the UK. It was nothing. None of that film was done in Vietnam. It was all shot in London Docklands.
Really?
Set. Yeah, in what is now, because this was back in the 80s before they redeveloped it. Now you've got the Canary Wharf buildings and all that stuff. Yeah. That it was when it was still all kind of derelict.
No, I never knew that.
It's mad, isn't it? I think that's why, because Kubrick never made most of his films in the UK. Didn't go. It's like he did the one with Tom. He did the one with Tom Cruise.
I would never have guessed.
The Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman one, which was his
Born last... Thunder...
No, it was Kubrick's last film.
Oh,
it's the one that had
Eyes
all the
Wide Shut.
That's the one. Had all the sort of sex and intrigue and drama in it.
Yeah.
That was set in New York, but it was all filmed in the UK. Even in the outdoor scene, there's some outdoor street scenes, but that's all done on sets at I think it was Pinewood or wherever it was. I don't know why we're going into a film buff.
I know, but I want people to understand one thing. Obviously, we're not here to talk about films, but
yeah,
I want to give you the opposite side of the spectrum we're talking about here. Kubrick's films weren't filmed in Vietnam or New York, but he made them look like it. If you get chance, anybody, wherever you can stream it from, watch A Dangerous Game with Callum Best in. I know as soon as I say that name, you're thinking, this movie is going to be awful. And yes, it is. But you have to watch it to grasp how bad it is. The fact that he's a Premier League footballer who can't afford to pay off his mate's gambling debt, so ends up robbing banks. Robs trainers from a store, and it's like, how much money do you think this trainer shop's going to have in it? But anyway, there's one bit where he meets this girl in a nightclub and they go off to Paris. And all I can say is they're sat there on a bench. The camera pans back. It's quite clearly a park in London because it's got the Green Council bench. And somebody's just superimposed the Eiffel Tower in the background. Trust me, it's an hour and a half. It's got Darren Day in it. And he's when I say he is the best thing in this film, that's how bad this film is. But it's 90 minutes, and it's 90 minutes where you'll just be going, oh my God, this is awful. But it's bad. It's good awful, if you know what I mean.
So, now, I'm not that up on celebrity gossip, but I do know Callum Best is the son of the legendary footballer George Best.
George Best, yeah. And the fifth Beatle, or sixth Beatle.
But he was never, the son was never a footballer, was he, professionally?
No, and there is a few scenes in this where they're at training.
Right.
And he is appalling. You would think that some of the talent... I mean, Paul Dalgleish had some sort of career. Okay. He played at a fairly decent level. And his dad was a brilliant footballer, Kenny Dalgleish. Callum Best, if it wasn't for his good looks... He is zero... dude, if you can find this film, trust me, you'll hate it, but you'll also love it at the same time because it
sounds terrible.
So bad. Yeah.
I didn't know he acted. I know that he's kind of famous for...
He doesn't act, dude. That's the trouble. There's no acting going on.
As far as I knew, he was famous for being a kind of celebrity tabloid bad boy.
A shagger.
Thing, basically, that's all he's known for.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, you have to watch it. Please watch it because it is thoroughly... No one listened to Gary Barlow's debut solo album. It's as bad as that.
You've done some cultural stuff.
In fact, it's better than that.
You've done some cultural stuff.
Better than that.
You listened to the whole Gary Barlow solo album and watched the whole film with Callum Best.
Yeah. It is pretty... It is awful, but it kind of knows that it's awful. It's kind of like there's a little wink in that to say, yeah, we know we've got no budget, but it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Have you ever seen, thinking of people who are the son or daughter of someone who was outstanding and legendary at what they did, have you ever seen in real life the son or daughter of someone who is a legend, rather than seeing that actual legend?
Have I ever seen the son or daughter of a legend?
Like seeing, Stella McCartney or something,
So that wouldn't count as if I was at a football game and there was somebody's famous son playing, because I've obviously done where they've had a famous dad and they've been playing. I saw Ian Jury's son live. He was good.
Okay. Where was that, in a football match?
He was supporting Noel Gallagher.
Oh, okay. So he does music, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I've not seen someone like, if I just walked into like a coffee shop and saw them in there. I haven't in that environment, but I've probably seen famous footballers' sons playing football when they played against Coventry, etc.
Well, I'm trying to think whether I have. I've seen Bob Dylan's son, Jacob Dylan.
Yeah.
And I saw him performing music, but I hadn't gone to his concert because he was performing in a record store in New York. And I didn't know that he was going to be doing it. I just happened to be there, and it just happened to be happening. This all was happening by complete chance. And it wasn't chance, obviously they'd set it up, but I didn't know they set it up. And it was the Wallflowers, which was led by Jacob Dylan, and they must have released an album or something promoting it. But I've actually seen his dad at a concert. But obviously I haven't stumbled upon Bob Dylan anywhere. But I stumbled, apart from going to the concert, but I stumbled across his son. Does that count? It must do.
Yeah, that counts. That counts. I'm just trying to think. Have I seen anybody who's... I don't know. Like I said, the only musician I've seen who's got a famous dad is Ian Jury's son. I'm just trying to think if any... No, I can't think of anybody, dude.
You don't have to. It wasn't the most exciting question I've ever come up with, to be quite honest.
No, but it's a thought-provoking question. That's a good... Is Liam Gallagher's dad famous? Tommy Gallagher?
No, because he was only famous retrospectively for the fact that if
he
he's
was,
known for anything,
yeah.
he's only known for the son that
I don't even think he. I don't even think he's famous. No, so no. The answer to your question is no. But then again, I have seen my own reflection, and I don't like to brag, but my grandparents were called Mary and Joseph. In the 60s, my dad looked like the Western world's version of Jesus. So that basically means I am the son of Jesus. And he's pretty famous.
Yeah, it was your birthday the other day.
It was my birthday on Thursday.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. My mum turned up and I wished her happy birthday before remembering it was my birthday. Her birthday's in November. I did. I had a good birthday. Obviously I've got my Jamiroquai album. My brother has yet to get me a present, which I have asked him to get me the Smiths. Oh, what's the one with all the B-sides and that on?
Hatful of Hollow?
No, the other one, the orange cover.
Louder Than Bombs.
Louder Than Bombs. I've asked him to get me a copy of that. And then I treated myself on my birthday. Oh, in fact, I treated myself to a couple of musical things because I obviously bought the Air album. And then I was out shopping and I bought myself 2 Pretty Green t-shirts because they are now sold in a large branded sportswear outlet and they were only £12.99. So I don't think Liam Gallagher has anything to do with the brand anymore. And I think they actually ended up, which is why they've been bought out by this, sports retailer who have big mugs. So, so I bought a couple of them. So, yeah, it was good, dude. I did find up here, I think I might have a grey hair. Can you see it?
At least you've still got something growing on your head.
I know. I bet you look at me with pure envy, don't you?
To be honest, I'm glad that I don't have to bother deciding what to do with it or making sure it's styled and all that stuff. All that's just
no.
Stress-free.
And you can, you get up, you look like Michael Stipe on a daily basis, but you've got a very good shave line, Phil. So your beard is far better than my wispy bag of smoke that's been dumped on my face.
But
what?
Do you want to know what I've listened to?
That's exactly what I was just about to ask. What has Phil been listening to these last couple of weeks?
I'll tell you what, the last couple of weeks, the artist I've listened to the most is
B-52s.
I've been on a bit of a dad rock thing because I have listened to a little bit of ELO, which is quite a dad rock.
Yes, you did say this the other day.
So I've listened to a bit of it, and I do enjoy a bit of it. When I've been out for a walk, I've had a bit of ELO, and it is kind of, it boosts your mood. It's sunny, optimistic stuff, isn't it? I do enjoy a bit of Jeff Lynne, and but I think the reason I put that on is because I was listening to some tracks that had been produced by Jeff Lynne, and the reason I was listening to that is because I was doing a deep dive on the Quiet Beetle,
Mr. Harrison.
Indeed. Now,
some may say the miserable Beetle.
Yeah. Now, I've always, I love the Beatles, right? And I do like solo stuff by all of them. And I've always liked a lot of George Harrison stuff. But for some reason, he's right now, George Harrison is vibing with me more than Lennon and McCartney. I don't know what. And there's a lot of people out there there are some people out there who have George Harrison as their favourite Beatle, aren't there? There's people who they love George.
I do like George Harrison. I take the mickey out of him for being a bit miserable and a bit dour, but some of his videos and stuff do have very humorous elements to them.
Yeah.
And I can't get over that. There's some video, I was showing somebody a video of him the other day, and he was 10 years younger than me in this video, but he looked 20 years older. He was only like 32.
Is that Blow Away?
It could have been. He looks very, very old. I suppose a hard touring life and smoking and those sort of things. And I think people just looked older back then, didn't they? I think lack of preservatives in food, probably.
Well, if you look at the video for this song, the song called "This Song,"
This song, is that the one where he's in
it's a
court?
yeah, because the whole thing's
Yeah,
taking the mick out of the copyright lawsuit. And in that video, he has got long hair, and it was, I think, 1976, and he still looks like a cool rock star kind of look, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that was when he was 33, because the album was 33 and a third, which is a play on the fact he was that age. And then about 3 years later, he did the self-titled album, which was 1979. And that video for Blow Away, he looks like a guy who's a lot more than 3 years older than he had been in the previous video.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you have a look at him in, what's the one where when we were fab?
When we were fab. Well, that was 1987. That would have been 87, 88.
Was it? He looks. I mean, so 1987. That's 20 years. 20. So he was only about 24 when the Beatles split up, wasn't he?
Yeah, something like that.
You kind of forget how well Lennon was 30. So McCartney must have been 28. So he would have been 26, 27 when the Beatles split up.
Yeah.
So 1987, he would have been younger than I am now. And he looks very old in that We Were Fab video.
And he was only in his early 40s.
I do quite like that song. There's something sort of, for a man who didn't really like, I always get this impression he didn't really like talking about his Beatles life. It was like something that happened and he was in somewhere new. Yeah, but he did do a few songs that sort of hark back to that time in the Beatles.
All those years
when we
ago
were fab.
Is another one.
Yeah.
That's from the early 80s. But I think I've always been, I've always had this thing that I don't like to have a preference between Lennon and McCartney, because I think Paul McCartney gets unfairly slagged off. And although I find John Lennon really fascinating, and I love John Lennon's Beatles songs, maybe a bit more than McCartney's, but I don't agree with all the Macca bashing that goes on. No, but I've always kind of seen George as number 3, if you know what I mean. As John and Paul are the top 2, and I've always seen George as being slightly. But then I'm thinking
he's still Champions League.
I'm now thinking maybe I've kind of underrated him in a way, because he's more his solo career is very consistent in some ways. You got the All Things Must Pass, which is obviously a great one.
Was that 1970?
71. And then you got Living in the Material World, which is again another very consistent album. Some people will say that's, some people like that more than All Things Must Pass. And then there's some pretty good stuff on, Dark Horse is maybe a little bit overlooked. There's some good stuff on there. And some of these songs, you have to, he does sort of poppy type songs, but he also does songs that are, the first time you hear it, you think, well, it's kind of okay, but nothing special. But then when you hear it a few more times, it kind of buries itself in you start to dig it more.
In your mind, yeah.
And I think the self-titled album from 79, although it's a very mellow album, is a very, very good one. It's a mature album, but I think that's very high quality. And then I've been listening as well to Brainwashed, which is the one that came out after he died. It was the one that was sort of almost finished, but the son and Jeff Lynne and Danny,
Danny
finished it off.
Who looks crazily like his dad.
Yeah, that's quite bizarre, isn't it, how much he looks like him?
Yeah. Well, Sean and Julian Lennon look very much, you can tell they're John Lennon's kids straight away.
Yeah.
I suppose the same with James McCartney. You can tell he looks like if you order Paul McCartney from Temu.
Yeah, I know what you mean. He does have the resemblance, but he doesn't look quite the same. But there's a resemblance there. But yeah, Sean Lennon looks more like John Lennon now, I think.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, definitely.
Looks more like him. But
I only own one George Harrison album on vinyl.
Which one is that?
Living in a Material World. That's the one.
That's my impression of it. It's probably the wrong hand. I've probably got that wrong way around.
The Lord loves the one that loves the Lord. It is that hand, yeah. So, yeah, it's the only George. In fact, I've got a few albums by people called George. I've got some George Michael, George Ezra, George Harrison, and George Levin. There we go. Yeah, I kind of. I think that's probably why he was more consistent, because I don't think he had that pressure on him of being Lennon or McCartney.
That's possibly true as well. And I really respect Paul McCartney's work ethic. The fact he's always had a project going, and he's so enthusiastic, and he's so into his music. But with George Harrison, I think he wasn't so obsessed with music as Paul McCartney. He liked his other things as well, like Formula One and gardening or whatever he liked doing.
Gnomes.
And yeah, the music was
being happy all the time.
One of the things that he did, but it wasn't the be all and end all for him. But in a way, I can kind of admire that as well. That he just sort of, he wasn't so obsessed with it. But when he did it, he did it well. And I'm thinking now that for some reason, I'm connecting more with him than I ever have before.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is.
Maybe he has entered you spiritually.
Maybe it is. Maybe I'll be doing Hare Krishna next.
That sounded wrong, didn't it?
Yeah. But
you've been entered by George Harrison.
He did actually he always seemed to have. He did seem to still have a bit of a bee in his bonnet about Paul McCartney, didn't he? He did still seem to have a bit of a difficulty working with him, because I've got a feeling that if John Lennon had lived, the moves were going that Lennon and McCartney would have got together and done something together musically. I think that would have happened within a few years. They'd have done something. But I don't think that George Harrison would have wanted to join in with it.
No, well, I had a clip come up on YouTube the other day, and it was George Harrison, and they were interviewing him the fact that Lennon was a bit miffed about that Harrison hadn't mentioned that Lennon had written or contributed towards some song that he'd done. And he said, well, in Lennon's book, he never, mentioned the fact that I contributed a line to this song, a line to that song. So I think that it gave him artistic freedom once he left the Beatles. I think it was a big weight on his shoulders being stuck in that.
Being second to the songwriting duo that had this established partnership, and they were seen as the genius songwriters. It was almost impossible, really, to flourish any further in that band, wasn't it, I guess?
Yeah. And let's face it, when they came together, it was really only McCartney and Harrison that were friends. And then when you work, it just becomes work. We'd all look at it like with footballers. You look at it, you think, I love to do that. Oh God, these footballers who moan about it, these musicians who moan about the price of fame and all this sort of stuff. Oh, they don't know what it's like. But then we forget that this is just a job to them. Some of them, yeah, they are but there's people who are dead enthusiastic about being, and I'm not being disrespectful to it, but there's people who really love being window cleaners or love doing, so it is a job. Once you get to that stage of you're not doing it in your living room and you've got to meet deadlines and go to board meetings and you've got album constraints and all this, it becomes a job. And so, so for all these, that bond probably wasn't there. They've been through a lot together. But what I'm trying to say is there was only two of them who were really friends beforehand. And if you haven't got that bond from an early life, it's quite easy to go your separate ways once you stop doing what it is that kept you in common at that period of time. So, yeah. We have gone really philosophical today, Phil.
Oh. Do you know what else I've been listening to, which is a bizarre one? Now, I don't know how I got onto this. How did I get onto this? I think I got onto this reading something online. But anyway, I suddenly started thinking about it. Songs that begin with a fade in rather than having a definite start to them. They fade up.
Rocking Chair, Oasis, B-side,
Yeah,
Roll With It.
That's one of them. Now, for me, that's a prime example because there's quite a few songs out there that have got some kind of ambient sound. It might be a keyboard sound or sound effects, which fade up. Okay.
Well, I suppose Born Slippy's almost got it, hasn't it? That dum, 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 dum.
But it has got a definite start. It's mellow, but it does actually start. But some of them
hasn't
have got
the
things,
faders being pushed up, has it?
I mean, famous examples of this would be something like "Where the Streets Have No Name" by U2, which has that gradual build up, and then the guitar comes in, right? But it's an ambienty kind of sound that's faded in, and the sound effects on, say, something like "Riders on the Storm" by the Doors, which I think fades up. I think the rain sounds sort of fade up, and then you get the bass. Right.
Does Champagne Supernova have a fading? Because it has sound of water washing, and then it kind of fades in,
it has a kind
of
a crossfade, isn't it? That's more of a crossfade, I would say. But for me, the one that's most interesting is where the band is already playing and it gets faded up with the band already playing. And this is so that's where I got it, because someone had posted about the Bob Dylan song, "The Changing of the Guards." You ever heard that one?
Yeah.
That fades up. The band is already playing. It's the band is up and running, and the song is suddenly faded up, and then Bob Dylan sings the first line, 16 years, and it goes on. And someone commented and said they love the way it starts to fade in, because it's as if the song has been playing forever in a parallel universe, and we've suddenly just been allowed to hear it. Which is kind of cool. A kind of cool way of thinking about it. And then someone commented saying, "Oh, it would be which of the songs do this?" And then I said, it would be good to have a playlist of all the songs where they start with a fade in. And then someone else said, "Oh, if you ever make that playlist, could you share it with me?" So I thought, maybe I'll go and make this playlist. So I went online to a few sources and a few discussion forums, and then I found 36 pages on Steve Hoffman music forums where people have been nominating these songs that fade in. So then I started looking them all up on Spotify. So I ended up spending, I don't know, maybe an hour or so on Saturday afternoon, yesterday, just previewing all these songs that fade in at the start. And I made a playlist of them. And the playlist has now got over 150 tracks on them, and it's 12 hours long.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got a playlist of songs that fade in. And it's every genre. Now, it's done quite a lot in prog rock, but again, a lot of those is the more ambient-y side of sounds being faded in, which is okay, which counts.
8 days a week.
Yeah, that's a weird one, because that's a kind of a fade up, isn't it? Because you kind of
you
do kind of hear that first guitar chord, and then the volume gets faded up. And I think they did that because they thought the intro was a bit boring, and they felt they wanted to sort of it was a quick way to do something more dramatic with the intro, because they couldn't be bothered to think they were under a lot of pressure to make that album. But
I'm trying to think if I know of any. There's probably hundreds of songs.
The other Beatles one that fades up at the start is "Dear Prudence," but that's cross-faded with the end of Back in the USSR. Although you can now hear "Dear Prudence" in isolation in the new mix on the new version of the Blue album.
I've got that opposite me here, actually.
Now includes "Dear Prudence," and it's fading up from nothing.
What about what's the David Bowie track? Space Oddity?
Does got kind of yeah. There's also 5 years on the Ziggy Stardust that has, and there may be some more by Bowie. That's the Bowie one that I found.
Isn't More Than a Feeling by Boston have one?
That is a fade in. There's quite a few. There's loads by prog rock. There's quite a few.
Does Zeppelin have?
There's quite a few by ELO. Did Led Zeppelin have one? I think there might have been one. I'm trying to think what that was. Oh yeah, Thank You by Led Zeppelin has a fade in with like an organ.
Yeah,
it's like the Hammond organ or whatever it is.
Ah, I know one that has one.
Yeah.
I Want to Be Adored by the Stone Roses.
Yes, that has, hasn't it? With that sort of.
That's got one in it.
What is that at the start? It's kind of like some kind of industrial noise, isn't it? It's kind
noise,
of
yeah.
It's kind of. Is it a sound effect? Is it done on a guitar?
I'm not sure.
Is it done? Does John Squire do that on a guitar, or is it some kind of sound effect? What?
You get that weird noise, don't you? On
what is that?
Fool's Gold before the bass kicks in. It sounds like something tapping or dripping.
It's this sort of like whipping sound. It sounds to me like a sort of
yeah.
I think that's not really a fade in. It's an unusual intro, but it's not a fade in.
No.
And I'm saying that I Feel Fine by the Beatles is not a fade in either, because it starts with a definite note being kept on the guitar, and then the feedback howl, and then but it's not a fade in strictly. There are one or two songs where they fade up. There are some songs that have a definite start to them, and they're then faded up. One of my favourites for this is Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others by the Smiths, because not only does it fade up, it fades up, and then someone pulls the fader down and then pushes it back up again.
Put it back up again.
That must have been Morrissey. That must have been a Morrissey thing,
Fiddling.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
I would think, or maybe it was a Johnny Marr thing, but they did it like that. It's as if the song starts.
What's the other? There's another one. There's another Zeppelin one. I think it's. I'm not sure it's a fade in or
you are right. There are a couple more by Zeppelin. There's
Achilles' Last.
Yes,
Stand.
That's a good example of an unusual fade. Yeah, and also Nobody's Fault But Mine on the same album has a fade in as well.
And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Rocking Chair by Oasis, a great fade in.
That's on my list. Rocking Chair by Oasis is on my list.
I think that makes the song that. There's just something about that fade in that kind of makes it almost like, in a weird way, like it's almost like you've got to catch it before it goes.
It's weird because for some reason it does fit the mood of that song, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It wouldn't necessarily fit a lot of their other songs, but for some reason, if that song started.
It wouldn't sound right.
It wouldn't be quite the same. No, it's this whole thing. I think it's like with the Bob Dylan one, that there's this feeling that it's already been going on.
Yeah. And you're kind of walking into it.
Because somebody not long ago asked me what I think of fade out finishes on records, and why can't they finish a song properly? Because they have to finish it properly when they play it on stage. But is a fade out a lazy way of ending a song? And I think it can depend on the subject matter of the song, because sometimes if you've got a song which is about a certain feeling and it hasn't been resolved and someone's dilemma is carrying on, the fact that the song fades away is indicating that that's a never-ending that you know issue. What I mean? It can fit the story. It can fit the story of the song better than ending it. But the idea of fading it in, it's almost as if. So what I'm saying is,
happened.
Yeah, or it's been going on for a while, and you've just gone into it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. No, I get that.
And with the Rocking Chair one, what's the first time that's something about this town's got no more for me? Blah blah. That's
I'm older than I wish to be. This town holds no more for me all my life.
So it's a
great vocal as well.
Is it basically that he's been feeling that way for a while, and then you've just sort of come into it? It does kind of work, although clearly the bands must think, or when they're making the album, they must think somehow we don't like the start of that. We'd rather have a fade up.
Yeah. And I think maybe because it's all we've ever heard of it, but I think you are right. If that track just started, it probably wouldn't have the impact. It almost changes the ethos and they sort of.
It would have to
play that track.
They'd have to start, and they'd have to play without any vocal for a while, and then have him come in, and then it would probably work okay. But it would have to have quite a long. It'd have to have quite a long intro, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think having that fade in means you can bring the vocal in sooner.
I think that's probably the reason why they've done it. Yeah, because it's one of those songs where you just can't start it and then have him start singing straight away. You got to establish that groove and establish it. Yeah. So the fade in is always
so deep today.
I don't know why we're going on about this, but anyway.
I'll tell you what, we are normally shallower than a puddle in the desert, but we are on it today, Philster.
So my playlist, which is called, what did I call
Phil's
it?
Playlist. Fading out.
Fading in, I've called it. It's now.
Well, you put a lot of thought and effort into that one. Now, why aren't you working in marketing, Phil?
Now, the guy I was talking to online, he has saved it. He's appreciated it and thanked me for doing it, and he's going to share it with all his friends now. But it's a random guy that I don't know at all.
What have I told you about speaking of random guys online, Phil?
I know, but so on this, it's also got. I started it off with "Changing of the Guards" by Bob Dylan, just because that was the song that started this whole thing off.
Yeah.
And then I've got a song which is actually how long is this song? It's 11 minutes and 39 seconds long. It comes from an album that came out in, I think, 1971. It's a classic sort of progressive rock album. And it's got what I think might be...
Genesis?
It's that genre, but it's not Genesis.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer?
It is...
Jethro Tull?
No, you're getting there. Not. It's not. It's not that. Well, Jethro Tull is prog.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But this is the title song from "The Low Spark of High-Heeled Boys" by Traffic.
Oh, I've never listened to Traffic. I've listened to Traffic, but not the band.
That's Traffic. The band that had Steve Winwood in. Now, that's probably got the longest fade in of any song. It's really long fade in. It's kind of hi-fi nerd stuff, but it's.
I bet you loved it, didn't you?
It was great.
Imagine if Noel Gallagher called his band that, High-Flying Nerds.
I Want to Tell You by the Beatles. That's my mate George Harrison. Yeah.
Remember
that
buddy.
one on Revolver? That's a good one. I like that song. I'd forgotten that this had a fade in. Gloria by U2.
Yeah.
Speed of Life by David Bowie from Low. That's another one.
Yeah.
The Smiths, Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. I'd mentioned that before. Cities by Talking Heads from Fear of Music. The Led Zeppelin one, Thank You. Joni Mitchell's Sweet Bird from Hissing of Summer Lawns. And More Than a Feeling by Boston. You got that one. The Police have one as well.
More Than a Feeling.
The Bed's Too Big Without You by the Police. There's a lot of prog ones, so I didn't fill it with prog. I just put the well-known ones. So Adventure by Yes, and Shine on Your Chrome to See Diamond by Pink Floyd. There's one which is not a fade in by design, but it's a fade in by the fact that it wouldn't exist. Well, it's Derek and the Dominoes and Key to the Highway.
Oh, Deza.
Which is an old blues number. And while they were recording the Layla album, the band suddenly started doing this song. They weren't supposed to be recording it, but Tom Dowd, the producer, pressed record and let them carry on jamming and kept it. And then, obviously, they had to fade it up because he hadn't caught the start of it. So that's why Key to the Highway fades in. Rocking Chair.
He's a man of knowledge.
I found what I think is probably the fastest fade up ever, which is Barbecue by ZZ Top. I mean, it is a fade up, but it's a rapid one. It's a rapid one. It's like someone's just gone. But it does actually fade up from nothing.
You've got into ZZ Top recently, haven't you? They were in your.
Well, I've always enjoyed a bit. Well, I've always enjoyed a bit of ZZ Top. Did they come in my 20 favourite bands or something, or did I put them on a list?
Something like that, yeah.
I was being honest, I enjoy listening I've always enjoyed a bit of ZZ Top. Pretty Maids All in a Row by the Eagles. Castles Made of Sand by Jimi Hendrix. It's got that sort of wah-wah guitar
Wow,
thing.
wow, 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 wow.
Now there's one by
wow,
Pulp.
wow.
Can you guess what the Pulp one is? It's off the really big Pulp album. What's it? Different Class.
Different Class.
There's
Short of Threes and Wiz.
I haven't got that. It's not that one. Maybe that has. I don't know how that starts.
No, I don't think it has. No, it doesn't.
That's not the one I've got here.
Babies isn't on that album, is it?
No, I think that's on the one before.
It's not Common People.
No. That just starts with the
Misshapes?
keyboards, doesn't it? It's Pencil Skirt.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That does actually fade up. The Clash doing I Fought the Law, their version of that is a fade up.
I fought the law and the law won.
There's a few by ELO. I've got Turn to Stone, but there's a few by them. Out of the Blue by Roxy Music is a fade up. Radiohead on the Bends. Now, which song on the Bends by Radiohead has got a fade up at the start? Any idea?
Is it one of the big tracks?
It's not one that is really played. No, it's not like Fake Plastic Trees or Street Spirit. It's not one of the ones that I think has ever really been played very much anywhere.
It's Black Star. Is it Black?
Yes, no. It's Black Star. You're right. That's the one. That fades up.
I had OK Computer on earlier, actually. That's another album that never listed in my things I've been listening to.
Foxy Lady, Jimi Hendrix.
He's in there, isn't he?
Girlfriend by Matthew Sweet. Now, there's one that I hadn't thought of this one, and someone mentioned it. On John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band, the song Love has got that gentle fade up.
Fade up, yeah.
Also, the opening track from the Oasis album Morning Glory, Hello.
Oh,
fades
hello.
Up. It has what is basically it has the intro to Wonderwall fades up, doesn't it?
It does, yes, yeah.
The acoustic guitar intro for Wonderwall fades up, and then it's interrupted by the feedbacky guitar, the opening note, and then it goes into Hello. Quite a cool way to start the album, really. I quite like that.
Yeah. Summertime Sadness, Lana Del Rey. I think that has a fade up.
Oh, does it? I don't think I've got her on my list. Summertime Sadness.
I'm sure that's got a fade up.
Summertime.
Pretty sure. Sadness. Have a look.
Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
Here we go. I'm going to have a quick listen to it.
He's going to have a listen, people.
Is it actually a fade up? It's got like a keyboardy thing. No, it doesn't actually fade up. It starts with a very sort of ambient-y, but it doesn't fade up, I'm afraid. It just starts.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Lana, you haven't made my list yet.
Yeah, Lana.
ABBA have done it with Fernando.
Yeah.
And there's a few...
I've never been a massive ABBA fan. I just can't get into ABBA. I'm going to put it out there. I just doesn't do anything for me.
I don't put them on to listen to them, really. I mean, there is a genius to ABBA, of course. They're very accomplished. You know, the song.
I love Super Trooper. That's a great track.
The compositions are very accomplished. Some of the songs, of course, have become a little bit musical wallpaper, haven't they? Because you've heard them so often in so many places.
Yeah.
If you find one that's not so overplayed, that can be rewarding.
Yeah.
But I kind of know what you mean. But there is also, there's a lot of talent went into their stuff, and it's good pop music. But I don't always want to listen to it that
better
often.
Than the B-52s.
You can enjoy a bit of it. Now I did listen to a bit of the B-52s the other day.
Love Shack. I know, because you sent me the lyric to it the other day.
The B-52s to me are a band that would have been really, really fun to see a gig in a relatively small venue.
When they
were at their peak. And because they're just so wacky and fun. But I mean, my favourite things are things like Rock Lobster and things where he's just they're just bonkers. But yeah, I mean, I know you hate Love Shack, but a lot of people hate Love Shack. But
Love Love Shack. Oh God, yeah.
They were completely bonkers, but good fun. There's a few records here that fade in that some guy in America nominated, and they're mainly from the early 80s, and it's sort of American FM radio, corporate rock type stuff, which a lot of the songs I don't recognise at all. So I'll be interested
because they're boring.
Well, I'll be interested to hear them to see what they're like. Susie Q by Creedence Clearwater Revival, that fades in.
Does it?
Yep, as does Lady by T-Rex. They fade in.
I never knew.
So some bands have got quite a few that they use it quite a lot. Metallica use it a lot.
Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily.
What about Rage Against the Machine?
I don't know about them doing it.
Well, I suppose in that genre you are having the fade in because you can sort of have the drums and everything going, and then you fade it in, so you getting that crescendo as
some of them
fader
do that.
peaks, aren't you?
Some of them actually do that.
Slipknot.
Charmless Man by Blur. Yeah, that's got a fade in.
Does it?
Yeah. It's kind of.
I'll have to go back and revisit that. That's not a bad track, actually. Charmless Man. Not a charmless man.
Again, it's a kind of a more ambienty thing that fades up, and then the band starts playing. So it's
Charmless Man. I would say is Blur at peak Cockney Blur.
Yeah, well, I would have said, isn't something like Country House the peak of Cockney Blur, or Tracy Jacks and all that era?
Yeah, there's something about Charmless Man. It's got all the Damon vocals in it.
When was Charmless Man? Was that done on the Great Escape?
Great Escape, yeah, the 95, 96.
So maybe that was the peak of Cockney Blur before they went a bit grungy with Song 2 and
before
all
they
that
went
stuff.
a bit Pavement. Yeah, because it had stereotypes and stuff like that on it, didn't it? So
yeah.
Stereotypes, there must be more to life. Yeah. Cockney Blur.
So there we go. Well, viewer,
we've had a good ramble, haven't we?
Yeah. Do you have any more songs that are starting with a really good fade in? I'm going to put a link below to my list of 12 hours of this nonsense, which you can delve into and maybe discover something groovy for yourself on that.
I'll tell you what else we want. We want a list of CD cleansing albums. What album can I pull on to cleanse my record player?
What, to make your other stuff sound good?
Yeah. What is the worst album by a great band that will make my record player sound better? And can I just say, for anybody says, it is not this album, because this album is very underrated. So
I do like the way that was produced by Mark Spike Stent. I think he found a good sound for Oasis. I actually do like that album, although it's flawed. It's not a perfect album.
Yes, it is flawed. Yeah,
but it's still. I still do like that album, actually. Yeah.
As we know, it contains the lyric, "I can see a liar standing by the fire." That lyric will forever be possibly the worst lyric ever written by a human being anywhere.
It's so bad. It's brilliant.
But you can also know that when it was written, that just because of the way they are, that you could just tell at the time, you just went, "Well, I'll do."
There's that version of that song which they perform live on TV.
Was it on
somewhere? It's on YouTube.
Jules Holland.
It might have been on the Jules Holland show, but they're definitely live and plugged in. They're not miming to it, and it really rocks. It's really good. It's such a good performance that the standing by the fire lyric doesn't matter. It's really good.
Is it the one where he says about his hands up upon the wheel? That's that one, isn't it? Yeah.
No, that's the other song. That's
is it?
Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is.
Mouth is, yes, it is. Yeah.
Which again, I do like that track, even though it feels kind of half finished. But I maybe kind of like that about it. I don't mind it.
And I think I quite like the sort of that album is the production, the fact it sounds both well produced and quite lo-fi.
It doesn't sound so produced that it sounds too polished. It still sounds has a little bit of a rawness to the guitars and stuff. It doesn't sound too polished. It doesn't sound like some of these 80s productions where, you know, the band that had previously been a garagey sound or have then gone into some expensive studio and it's taken everything out of it. It still seemed to somehow capture the soul of Oasis.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Our soul. Your soul.
So there you go,
my
viewers.
Soul.
George Harrison, got any views on his albums? Any underrated or hidden gems from George Harrison? Let us know if you've got any of those. Maybe I'll have to do a list of those. Think that would be interesting?
You like a list?
A George Harrison gems list? Songs that people don't know?
I think you should do that.
Maybe we'll do that
We do have a Spotify thing, don't we, where people can go and find our playlists.
Yeah, you can go find us. I'll put my one below.
We are on that. Yeah, we are on Spotify as well as YouTube. So like and subscribe. Every time you like and subscribe, Phil grows one hair. So remember, like and subscribe. Because by the end of the week, you can have a full afro going on.
I could look like you at least, yeah.
Cool.
Viewer, thank you very much for watching us. We have been Phil and Ben. We will be back with another show very soon. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Bye for now.